All right, I think I am on. Good evening, Queens. My name is Trici, and I am a life coach. I've been an official or certified life coach for about 2 years, but I started coaching single mothers back in 2011, starting at the shelter that I resided in with my son for almost a year and a half. And it started as a job readiness program. So I went back and provided, resources for the mothers to help them become ready to obtain a job, to get back on their feet. And, I provided toiletries and, different resources and tools that they needed to become self sufficient. But it wasn't until I became self sufficient and I'm going back and forth to the shelter and I met a new guy. Had my apartment, had my car, self sufficient. Thought I was in the clear, and the man became abusive again. So mind you, when I went into a shelter, I had just got out of an abusive relationship, lost my job, lost everything, and pretty much had to start back over from rock bottom. So here I am repeating the cycle, right? I thought, okay, once I get back on my feet, I'm healed, I'm back in action, but I was repeating the same choices that I've been making, right? With the same type of abusive men, un, emotional detached and unavailable men. Um, and I was making the same choices in my finances. So I was going through another eviction as I'm going back and forth to this homeless shelter. And then it just started making me go into this really deep introspection of like, it don't matter if I get another job, another apartment, become self-sufficient. If mentally I haven't been healed, if spiritually I haven't been healed, I'll be still repeating the same cycles. So that turned into a coaching program so that I can go into the shelters and tap into those limited beliefs that we tend to make or that we tend to have about ourselves that affect the choices we make, that affect how we show up in this world, that affect pretty much how we think about ourselves. And so that's been a lifelong journey for me, just really tapping into my limited beliefs. But what happened is I started to realize that I was still attached to men that I have been sexually active with, that I have had relationships with. I was taking on their characteristics. I was self sabotaging my current relationships because I was thinking about the past and what happened with them and things of that nature. And so I started learning about soul ties. I This is my fourth year being celibate. I had to really just kind of detach from that whole sexual thing and really, really tap into why I was attracting the same type of men over and over again. And I found out that it was just unhealed parts of me, right? So I'll go back to that in a minute, but I really wanted to talk about soul ties. And whether you are a religious person or not, soul ties is a theory that can be explained and understood by anyone, right? And it's this idea that certain actions, certain mindsets can connect you to a person on a more spiritual and soul level and bond you both in a way that is not easily broken, right? And it's typically said to come from sex. But for those that may not be familiar with soul ties, I wanted to go a little deeper into this because I feel the dynamic of soul ties and its influence over us as women, especially single women, is worth exploring and discussing. Okay. So, first, I wanted to give us a visual. of a soul tie, because you can't see a soul tie in the physical realm, right? And I wrote down some notes, so please bear with me, but let's just go into the definition of a soul tie, because you can't really see it in the physical realm. You may not even be aware that it exists, right? We may not even be aware that it exists. And isn't it amazing how the things that have the most powerful influences on us are things that cannot be touched in the physical realm, right? It's so powerful how those things have the most influence on us, that can't be seen or touched, but it doesn't mean that they don't exist, right? So look, so soul ties are formed in the spiritual realm. So let's try to give that a visual of what this may look like, right? So imagine a really heavy, thick rope attached to your waist, right, where your yoni is, and then a thick rope attached to your neck or your head, right? So you have a thick rope tapped around your neck, then it connects to the rope around your yoni or your waist, okay? Now the other half is coming out and is attached to the person that you may have slept with, right? And let's just say the more emotions, the more time, the more energy that you spent in this connection determines how thick that rope is, right? So imagine every sexual encounter that you've had, whether it was just casual sex, whether it was a one night stand, whether it was long or a short relationships, whether it was a connection that fed you or one that drained you, right? Doesn't matter. Each one of those connections represents a cord coming from that cord tied around your neck and your yoni. Hmm, that's a pretty scary image. That's a pretty scary image. And when you think about it, that's pretty much how it looks in the spiritual realm. And just imagine how difficult it would be. You got all of these ropes from different ways, pulling from different sexual partners. How difficult it would be to move and maneuver through life, but also even connect with someone else with all of those cords around your neck and your yoni. It can feel like bondage, right? And then you have those who don't desire to be married, right? Um, so that just means that you value your independence and your singleness even more, but it still affects how you show up in this world, whether it's through your family, platonic, romantic, or professional. Those soul ties affects us. And for those who are desiring to be married and to share their space with a man, or with a woman, whatever you prefer, and you desire to settle down with one person, how can you expect to give your all to this person if you're still tied to so many people from the past, right? And so when I looked deeper and researched deeper into soul ties, I wanted to break it down. So, like, what is the definition of a soul, right? What is the definition of a soul? Well, yeah, let's start with soul. So what I found out the definition of a soul is it's the spiritual or the immaterial part of a human being, right? It's the individual manifestation of spirit and your mental abilities of a living being, including your reason, your character, your emotion, the way you think, how you perceive the world, your consciousness, even your memory, right? So this is what your soul is. And then if you want to define what ties is, a tie is to attach or fasten someone or something with a string or cord, right? Or, and it is to restrict or limit someone to a particular situation, occupation, or place, right? So there you have it. A soul tie, you are connecting who you are, the core of who you are, your consciousness, your memory, your character, your thoughts. You are connecting this to someone else, right? And you're walking around living life in that type of space. And then you start to take on the characteristics of every person that you are connected with, and wondering why the relationships or your relationships are not working out, or you're even attracting the same caliber of people that that are toxic. And so, oh, thank you, Darlene. How you doing, love? Thanks for joining me. And so, like I was talking about, in my opinion, sex is the most powerful transference of energy, because it's like this tri-dimensional experience where your body, your spirit, and your soul is involved and intertwined with another person's body, spirit, and soul. And when you think about it, that's a powerful connection. And even if the intention is for, let's say, for it to be casual, right? This one night stand, or this like detached experience, right? Sex with no strings attached. Um, Regardless of the intention, it's still a powerful connection, and it still carries on with you. So think about it. When we have sex, there are things that happen on an emotional, physical, and mental level. First, there's this neurochemical change that occurs in both of our brains, right? Both parties' brains, that encourage limbic emotional bonding. So let's just say two people, they decided they want to have casual sex just for fun, maybe a one night stand, or like a friends with benefits type of thing. And even though the intention may be there, these two people are still attaching and connecting on another level that they may not even be aware of. And sometimes, actually, most of the time, the woman is left more emotionally attached and left with wanting more, because scientifically, get this, the woman's limbic system is larger than the male's. And also, there is this hormone that is released that we all have, and it's called oxytocin, and it's released through our brain during sex or any other type of intimate encounters. And like I said, this can cause attachment, and it can cause addiction, which are two strong vital components of any soul tie dynamic. Actually, they are the main ingredients of a soul tie: attachment and addiction. Okay, so like I said, people are so misinformed, and they're so convinced that sex is just like this one dimensional physical act with no spiritual or emotional connection, which allows people to be more free with who and what they, or who they have sex with, right? We're not judging the next person, that's fine. But because women, ladies, because we are the receivers, and we are more grounded in our emotions, and we have the bigger limbic system, it affects us more deeply. It affects us on a more deeper level. And when you receive so many partners, it starts to affect us on a soul level. It shows up in our relationships, right? Because first, we can be with someone and still be thinking or comparing this man to someone from our past. And secondly, we can even start to take on the characters and negative traits of that person that our soul is tied to, and carry their offenses everywhere we go. And like I said, this shows up in how we show up in the world. So where am I going with this? Um, I was reading this article, and from Moral Revolution. And in this article, they share like a few ways that may indicate that you are in a soul tie, right? So I wanted to just go with a few of them, and just see if you recognize yourself in any of these ways that you may be in a soul tie. You can be in a soul tie and still be married. You can be in a soul tie and be single, right? Um, but one of them is, excuse me, that you are in a physically and emotionally and or spiritually abusive relationship, but you feel so attached to them that you refuse to cut off the connection and set boundaries with them. So either they are physically abusing you, they are emotionally abusing you, or spiritually abusing you, yet you will not leave because you feel like, oh my God, I'm attached to this person, right? That's one way. We are intuitive women. We know when someone ain't treating us right. We know when someone is not treating us right and when we should be leaving. Our spirit of discernment may have kicked in those first few hours of meeting the man, but we stay anyways, right? And then once we have sex, now we are more attached and it's more harder for us to disconnect from this person. So that's number one. Another one is you have left a relationship maybe a long time ago, but you still think about the other person obsessively, right? You can't get them out of your mind. You ain't been with them for a long time. Another one is when you have sex with someone else, whether, hopefully your husband or your wife, you can hardly keep yourself from visualizing the person that you have a soul tie with, right? Another way you can tell is when you start taking on the negative traits of the person that your soul is tied to. Whether you agree with them and how they show up in the world or not, you're still carrying on those offenses with you. Um, let's see, you defend your right to stay in a relationship with the person that your soul is tied to, even though it is negatively affecting or even destroying the important relationships in your life. So whether it's, with your husband or your wife, your kids, if you are a leader, the people that you serve, right? You're still defending your right to stay in this relationship with, but I love him or I love her or we've been together for so long, or you're defending this although it is affecting every other relationship around you. Wow. And as I'm reading this article, I'm like, wow, they telling all my business. I mean, I can relate to all of that. And you also have simultaneously experiences or moods as the person that your soul is tied to. So this can include when they sick, you start feeling sick, accidents that they've had, you feel the wrath of that, addictions, all of that. So those are just a few. And if I may add an eighth one or the last one way you can tell that you are still attached to soul ties is if you are very guarded and very closed off to any type of new connections, right, with anyone else, right? Sometimes you are closed off to the whole dynamic of dating and relationships at all. And you don't even visit the idea of it because you feel like, all men ain't shit or all women, however you may feel, you don't even want to deal with the games that come with them. So you would rather not even be in a relationship at all. You have closed yourself completely off from even the possibility of it. And so if any of these examples resonate with you, just know that you are not alone. And there are different ways to break these soul ties that are not serving you in this season of your life. And although this is different for so many people, I would like to just share what has worked for me and what is still working for me because, again, I'm still healing. Um, and it's been 4 years. And how do I know I'm still healing? It's because um, a man that I had not had sexual contact with in over about 6 years came back into my life. Now, mind you, I'm already celibate. I have already been celibate for the last 4 years. And he came back in my life. And I knew that the reason why we stopped talking was because it was very toxic connection. Yeah, I started to entertain the possibility of us being together. and I almost slipped up and had sex with him, but I start obsessing over the idea of us being in a relationship, knowing that this was a very toxic relationship. Um, if I would have been healed, I would never even responded to his hey big head text, right? How the boys doing? Was thinking about you. How are you? I would never even responded to it, right? Knowing that that was somewhere that I shouldn't have been. So I'm still healing, right? But the first thing that you can do to break a soul tie is just acknowledge that you even have a connection and that the soul tie or a soul tie that may be unhealthy, right? Just acknowledge it like, man, I'm still connected to this person. And it was a toxic type of connection, and I'm still attached to him, right? You got to acknowledge it, right? We know when a connection is not serving our higher self, right? The proof is always in the pudding. God always, our higher power always drop those hints. Our spirit of discernment always lets us know, but we ignore it, right? So you have to acknowledge it. So for like an example, if you have a broken arm, you can't ignore that, right? Eventually you have to acknowledge it so you can tend to it properly and get some medical attention, right? And so if you're trying to use and pick something else up with that broken arm, it's just going to cause so much pain and agony. So just acknowledging, okay, my arm is broken, it hurts, something is wrong. Again, that's the first step towards revealing and healing, right? So just acknowledge it, put it out there, right? You can't heal what you don't reveal. The second thing, and I'm going to be reading this because I wrote this down, is setting intentions. Just being intentional about breaking that soul tie. You have to want to do the work that it takes to break this toxic tie. You actually have to do the work. And how does that work? It's different for everyone, like I said, but where I started with forgiveness, not only forgiveness for those toxic connections, but just forgiving myself, saying like, okay, Tracy, you were in a space where it allowed you, whatever your beliefs were that you had about yourself in the world, you made those choices on that conscious level. And it's okay. Because I'd be damned if I let a man ever put his hands on me again, or I'll be damned if I even entertain a man that I feel like is not kingdom building or that's going to be a great role model for my children. But again, right? You make choices from the conscious level that you are. So forgive yourself, right? It started with prayer. I was praying heavenly to break these soul ties. Affirmations and just being intentional on releasing that, whether that's with rituals or whatever you feel you need to do. It has to be intentional and you have to actually do the work. And a prayer that I usually use is, I break all soul ties with, and whatever that person name is, and cut off all influence from them. I forgive them and forgive myself, and I send back to them all that is theirs and reclaim all that is mine. Please reintegrate any part of me that may have been detained through this soul tie and restore me to my wholeness. I also ask that you will reintegrate any part of that person that has been detained in me and restore them to wholeness. And it is so, and so it is, or in Jesus' name, or whatever your religion or spirituality calls for you to seal this with, seal it, right? And then affirmations, right? I am free from soul ties. I am releasing everything that everyone that does not serve my higher good. Put these everywhere that you can to continuously remind yourself of what you are affirming. Affirmations speak of the present. And once it starts to seep into your subconscious, we know that our life is a reflection of what we think. So the more you start thinking, okay, I'm breaking these soul ties, I am releasing everything that does not serve my higher good, You do it long enough, eventually you'll start to see that manifestation in the physical realm. So forgive, pray, affirm, and last thing, release, right? Release it. Cry, 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 cry. Let it out. Every woman should have a tear pillow or a crying pillow handy. Crying is healing, it's therapeutic, it's healthy. So if you have to cry about it, sister, just cry, right? It's sad when you want something to work out and it doesn't. It's such a disappointment, right? And usually our higher power is protecting us from someone or something that we don't quite understand in the moment. So we have to trust and surrender during this time, but just acknowledge it and release it and know that it is going to be okay. And as spiritual beings having a human experience, we all yearn. We all have a deep desire to be loved, to be affirmed, to be heard, um, to be seen, right? Whether we want to acknowledge it or not, right? Or we're just good at hiding it. But these things matter to us as human beings. And anytime we feel that these things are not fulfilled, it hurts. That sugar honey iced tea hurts. So we have to release that hurt that comes with soul ties so that we can heal. Okay. Another thing, we have to just start being intentional and get this on what we listen to and what we feed ourselves during the time of healing, right? Music is an energy and it can affect your mood and your emotions. So you may have to put away those songs that put you in a sad space, right? You may have to put on some worship music, right? Get the praise of the Lord, or you may have to put on some trap music or something, right? I like to listen to smooth jazz, but you want to just start listening to and looking at and entertaining things that uplift your spirit or that motivate you to get money occur or that motivates you to get closer to your higher power, right? You can't be crying and thinking about a man or a person who hurt you if you listen to Mary Mary or Kurt Franklin, right? You just can't, right? Your spirit won't even allow you to. I'm just saying. So just be intentional on what you feed your five gates. And what I call your five gates, you have your inner woman, right? That soul, that pure part of you, that once it is tapped or affected, it can really affect everything about you. So your five gates is ways that energy can get towards that inner woman. And the five gates are pretty much your senses, right? You got to be really intentional on what you feed yourself by what you watch, right? We have these really violent, toxic videos that's going around that when you watch it, it stays stagnant. It starts to stay stuck in your psyche. So you have to be conscious about what you see or what you watch. You have to be conscious about what you eat, right? Um, Food is energy, right? You also have to be careful what you take out of your mouth or what you speak into existence, right? Because words are energy. You have to be mindful and intentional on what you, like I said, listen to. Your ears, smell, right? We have aromatherapy and certain scents and sounds can trigger us for negative or toxic things. I know for me, I used to date this man that used to wear the Issey Miyake cologne, and every time I smelled that cologne, I would think about him, right? And it would just bring back memories. But and then skin, right? Feeling. You got to be careful and intentional on who you touch and who you even allow, people who you allow in your space, right? So your five senses, your five gates. Be intentional on what you feed yourself while you are healing from these soul ties is very important. Um, you want to start writing and journaling, and it's a great way to start deep healing. Just writing down your goals, how you're feeling, quotes, scriptures, or whatever that will be therapeutic and empowering for you. Write it down, right? Write it down. I started writing my first book and I started this blog. It was more therapeutic for me, because I needed to heal and I needed something creative and positive to be my outlet. And one thing that I also encourage are spiritual baths. And again, spiritual baths have done miracles for me personally. Like I said, different for everybody, but a spiritual bath is different from a regular bath, right? We take baths every day, but a spiritual bath help you to reset and cleanse your aura and your energy fields, right? And I like to add my Florida water, my dry herbs, my essential oil, my bath salts. I light my candles, sage, my bathroom. I set intentions. I pray, I affirm, I cry, I meditate, all while I am in that tub. And I like to make sure I take a shower and wash my body before I even get in, because it's not for me to like wash myself up when I take these spiritual baths. It's more so for me to reset and cleanse my aura. And so, whole ritual with that. Um, and so, some of these things may seem really drastic, I know, to some people, but if you want to get over soul ties, you have to be drastic and intentional. I know when I meet the man that I'm supposed to grow and build with, I don't want to bring all that to the table. I don't want to be bound and controlled and attached to other men and other toxic relationships. And I don't want that man to be tied or attached to other relationships either. That's why I say, you want to become who you want to attract, right? And this whole process is going to be messy. It's going to be emotional. It's going to be some ugly things that come up that you're going to have to deal with that you may have hid behind alcohol, drugs, work, this false sense of confidence, um, um, shopping and money. We hide behind things so that we don't have to deal with it, right? And so you're gonna have to deal with it, but it will be worth it. Trust me. And you know that you are released from soul ties when you can see or hear about your ex, about them marrying or being with someone else, and you not feel anything towards that, right? When you can send them love and you can send them light to someone that you used to date or someone who has hurt you, and you feel not 1 ounce of resentment towards them, then you know you have been healed. And also just remember, they feel it too. Okay, so be aware, because when you're praying and when you're affirming and when you are breaking these soul ties, the person that you are breaking the tie with, they feel that shit too. Excuse my language, sugar, honey, iced tea. They feel the disconnect as well. So don't be surprised if you receive contact from that ex-boyfriend from years ago, randomly reaching out to you to connect after you've broken a soul tie, because it's like something that they feel, right? And so when a toxic connection reach back out to you, it's not a sign that you need to reconnect, right? You get to think like, I wonder what could have been. Let me revisit this. No, it's a test, right? And it's just the effect of them feeling that soul tie disconnect, and they are seeking to reestablish what felt normal to them. So if you, like I said, if you get that random Facebook message or phone call or text message, I felt for the hey big head, right? After you praying to break a soul tie, don't fall off your game. Just know that those prayers are powerful and that they are working and that soul ties and breakthroughs are being made. Okay, so let's break those soul ties, right? If you relate to that, hi Laverne, hi love, how are you? Um, so if you relate to that, um, just know that I have a blog. I'll leave my link in the description below. But we have to break those soul ties. They are affecting how we show up in this world, whether we want to admit it or not. And like I said, if we desire to be in a committed relationship, it's going to continuously affect, and we're going to continuously self-sabotage every relationship that comes our way. And let's say we do not desire to be married, like we want to be happily single. That's a beautiful thing as well. But just know that it's also, these soul ties are also affecting other relationships that you have with other people. It's still affecting how you show up, because again, like we said, a soul tie, if we define both of those words, the soul is that um, um, immaterial, um, the spiritual part of your being, right? It's a manifestation of your mental abilities, a reason, character, emotions, and then it's attached or fastened to someone else's manifestation of spirit and mental abilities and reason and character, emotions and consciousness. And it's restricting you from being who you really are, your authentic self, because you're carrying these offenses. You're carrying toxicity that's not even yours. And again, if you have these sexual encounters with so many people, again, remember that visual, right? That cord being attached around your neck and attached around your yoni, and then going out to every person that you slept with. So again, you can heal from it. It's different from everyone, but it can be done, okay? So thank you again for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'm super proud of us, you guys. We are writing a book. We are a part of a movement. We are inspiring and empowering Black women and girls all around the world. Our higher power is using us for a time such as this, and I am super, super proud of us. We are super dope. And I'm so proud to be a part of this with all of you women. You guys are powerful and dynamic and phenomenal, and I'm just honored to be a part of this with every one of you guys. So thank you for joining me. I apologize that I was a little late coming in live. It was something going on in my environment that I had to attend to. So I apologize, but thank you so much for joining me, okay? And I'm sending you love, light, and peace. Be blessed. Bye.